let's get into a little bit of silly season. This is a topic that tends to start earlier and earlier and earlier every single season. And however, it has been a slowish silly season. We know that where most players are going to be for the 2023 season, but there are a couple that are toss them up in the air. One, surprisingly, is Kyle Busch. He does not have a deal yet. He's talked about it multiple times in media availabilities. Toyota has come out and said that it would be unacceptable for him not to be in a Toyota next year. But Mamba, where does Kyle Busch land?
I hope he lands in ownership. Honestly, I hope. I've said this before. I think it's great. Our sport is so great because our athletes can roll into ownership. You don't get that with other sports, and it keeps it all together and like in the family, in the community. And we see what Denny has done, matching up with MJ, with Trackhouse with Justin Marks. He's kind of done the same thing with Pitbull. I think Kyle Busch, if he's in this in-between stage, like he knows how to be an owner.
Who do you want him to match up with?
Yeah, who gives him the
Oh
deal?
man, there's so many people out there. I don't know. I don't know who. I don't know.
But it could be any manufacturer. I mean, we don't necessarily have to
Oh yeah, it doesn't. I don't think it necessarily has to be Toyota, but that throws a little bit of a wrench into what's going on with the truck with KBM, right? So there's a lot of things to figure out, but I think ownership with Kyle Busch being your partner, if you're some high roller, this is a good spot to start.
So he drives for his own team, or he drives for Joe Gibbs and owns a Cup car?
I would like to see him drive, I think, his own team.
I'm sure Kyle would also like to drive his own team.
I think that'd be cool.
I don't know if a lot of people would want to work for Kyle driving for his own team, just a thought. But I can't believe that, and the last time I was on Backseat Drivers was like 6 weeks ago, and that was right after
we
Kyle
talked about
this. I was like, I can't believe we're still talking about this.
Know.
I can't believe this is still a thing in mid-June. So I think he's coming back to Joe Gibbs Racing. I love Mamba's idea here. Like, I think it would be cool to see him move into a new role and maybe take on some ownership, however that might be. But I think that would be a really heavy lift. And I think the easiest play and the smartest play, again, for Toyota, to your point, Alex, that they want to keep him. They've got so much invested in Kyle Busch Motorsports. I think he stays at Joe Gibbs Racing. I'm just surprised that it's taking this long. And I feel like the longer it goes, the more doubt it sort of creates of like, why hasn't this happened yet?
Speed it up. That's all we're saying. We just want answers right now. Next up, another driver for Joe Gibbs Racing. He spoke 2 weeks ago on the broadcast at Sonoma, saying that it was coming in the coming weeks. Once again, we've been hearing that for like 6 months. MTJ, Martin Truex Jr., the 19, may be an empty seat. It may not be. Nate, what's your take on Martin Truex?
I think it's still up in the air. Unfortunately, Alex, I think we're just going to have to keep waiting until MPJ makes a decision. I think it could be another month. James Small was on our NASCAR America show on NBC a couple weeks ago, and he said at that point he had had a long discussion with Martin Truex Jr. He thought he would be back next year, but that was before Sonoma, where Martin Truex Jr. was not his usual self at Sonoma. So I think it really might be week to week in terms of his decision-making process. And if I had to guess right now, I'd say, based off recent results, no, but that could change tomorrow.
I think.
Do you want Martin to own a team?
I would love that. I want if you're a superstar in our sport, I want you to move into ownership because it's just so great. Like, it's something that you don't see in other sports. I think that's what makes us so special. But I think he's gonna be done. I think the walk-in Hall of Famer is. I just think he's done. I think he's not done like talent-wise. I think he's just kind of done. It just seems like that. He seems like he's just kind of enjoying this process, and it might not be completely enjoyable because if you're winning, then that's what's most enjoyable. But I think he's ready, and that's okay.
And if he wants to walk, they've got Ty Gibbs right there in the wings.
That was my next question. Right? Do you bring in Ty Gibbs in the 19?
I don't, man. You obviously aren't going to go back to a 3-car team, right? Like, you're not going to do that.
No.
So it's like you kind of don't have a choice. Like, I wouldn't want to put Ty up to that right now. I just think that he has some maturity to do, and the Cup Series will expose immaturity really quickly.
Yeah.
So and right now his reputation on track isn't the cleanest.
The Xfinity Series might have exposed that we need some maturing a little bit.
Right. So I don't know.
I mean, I think that Gibbs has gotten burned by moving drivers up too quickly in the past, and they've reacted to that. Logano being a great example where he probably could have used another year in Xfinity. But then I think they might have waited a little too long on Eric Jones and maybe even Christopher Bell. So I think that where Coach Joe Gibbs is right now in his organization, I think even despite the maturity we've seen in Xfinity, there's still a long way to go in the Xfinity Series this season as well. Maybe he makes strides in the second half, and maybe he's the champion, and suddenly it seems like a natural progression to move Ty Gibbs out to Cup.
Yeah, we'll see. Okay, next up, the number 10 car with Stewart Haas Racing. We know that this is the final year for Eric Almirola, his full-time season. He's not obviously eliminated the fact that he may be back. And we know the drivers in the NASCAR Cup Series, when they retire, do they actually retire? Jimmy Johnson? No, you don't.
Mark Martin.
Mark Martin. Yeah, okay, so the number 10 car, who fills the void of the number 10 driver?
I think the obvious answer would be Ryan Preece, because he has the Harvick relationship, and obviously he's been running with Stewart Haas a little bit this year, so he seems like he's the obvious candidate. But I think this is still somewhat in flux. I think there's some activity around who's good in the Xfinity Series, who's good in the Truck Series. Certainly it's a little eye-opening when you see Zane Smith hop in a Ford at Gateway and run fairly well in place of Chris Buescher. He'd be on my list.
The obvious answer is Ryan Preece. But I think it's interesting because that seat could get filled by someone who's just hungry and really wants to show. And there's a lot of guys that haven't been in equipment like that before. Corey LaJoie is one of those guys that hasn't been in equipment like that before. Ricky Stenhouse he has a connection with Harvick and KHI.
Yeah,
also, I know he's there and he seems like he's a good fit, but Burton is in a Ford already and he has a connection with KHI as well. So there's a lot of moving parts here. I'm interested to see. I don't know, but I think I bet it'll be a surprise. I think we'll be surprised who's in the 10 car next year.
So if you are Tony Stewart, who is in your 10 car?
If I'm Tony Stewart,
Nate, I'm asking you the same question.
So if I'm Tony Stewart, I'm looking really hard at what's in house, what we've already developed, which is Ryan Preece.
Okay. What's your number 1 pick?
He's got to be on the top of your list because he's already in house.
Okay.
Right, and then my close second, honestly, is Corey LaJoie. I want to see LaJoie. I want to see LaJoie in equipment that is above B+. I want to see what he can do.
If I'm Tony Stewart, first I'm looking at who's under contract with what teams elsewhere, because I think Tony Stewart feels a little bit aggrieved that Kyle Larson was his guy. I think he feels like he got poached twice when they had a line of sight on Kyle Larson, and so I think Tony Stewart would like to get the best possible driver, but I think he'd also maybe like to inflict a little pain on his fellow Cup team owners and try to steal someone away. But I don't know who's up. I mean, and maybe it involves a buyout, but obviously Tony Stewart's a big Christopher Bell fan. I'm just throwing that out there. I mean, he's probably under contract, probably not available, but who knows, right?
But to your point, Zane Smith, I talked to Zane, I said, when Chip came out and said that he was looking at putting you in his Cup car, I was like, whew, that's a step. And I was like, but you have been killing it. And he is doing stuff in the trucks effortlessly.
Right.
And then he steps into the Cup car and you're like, oh, okay, we'll find out. And the 17 Cup car too. It's not like it's a prolific team right now. And he outran Brad and ran really well.
Completed the race,
finished 17th.
In a Ford.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. It's good.
If I'm Tony Stewart, I'm going Zane Smith. That's just my personal opinion. I think he has been around NASCAR long enough, paid his dues in the Truck Series. He's a dominant force in the Truck Series. He also has the style of driving that Smoke tends to navigate to. Zane Smith, all day long.